Last week, the Columbus Dispatch posed a question that comes up a lot in the debate about illegal immigration. Are illegal residents' medical bills a moral obligation or an undue burden on taxpayers? The article introduces us to La Clínica Latina, a facility that's part of the Ohio State University Medical Center and whose stated mission is, quote, to provide health care to the underserved Latino and Hispanic populations in central Ohio. Of course, being part of the Ohio State University system, that means it receives taxpayer funding. And therein lies the problem. You see, there's a bill pending in the Ohio State Legislature that would ban the use of tax money to provide health care for anyone over 14 who is here illegally. If passed, places like Clínica Latina would have to require legal documentation in order to render treatment on the taxpayer's dime. It would still be free to provide care if they can do so with private funding. So what is the hue and cry of soft-headed, bleeding hearts? But we're saving hardworking American citizens money by offering preventative care so hardworking Americans don't have to pay more later when illegals show up in an emergency room somewhere. We're afraid they miss the point that hardworking citizens shouldn't be paying for any of it. Not now, not later, not ever. But as is usually the case, there is more to the proclamation of being on the side of Americans than meets the eye. Check out this quote from Dr. Craig Ashcraft, director of Clínica Latina. You can't deny somebody basic human rights because they aren't from your country and they haven't entered legally. Health care is a basic human right. That's not the way to stop the immigration problem. That's akin to the argument we've seen many times and that was made in comments under last week's show. Viewer Annie B26 about the Bible. One of its lessons say that we should extend our hands to everybody that needs our help. Why are we be so ignorant about this particular situation? Annie B can speak for herself when it comes to ignorance. Part of the basic foundation of this great country is that we are not a theocracy, and the great majority of us want to keep it that way. That includes Ohioans. In a survey conducted by Quinnipiac last fall, 85% said they opposed government-financed benefits for illegal aliens. Finally, we meet Maria, who declines to give her last name because she's here illegally. She's about to give birth to baby number 2, paid for by the American taxpayer. Her family will receive about $6,000 in help this year if both children stay healthy and don't need additional health care. And what does Maria have to say about it all? Quote, I apply just like all Americans. The hospital connects you with everything. WIC, Medicaid. So let me ask you this. Did you sign a waiver authorizing our government to stop enforcing our immigration laws? Did you agree for your hard-earned money to be redistributed to illegal aliens who think they're just like all Americans? And are you willing to live in America where earning is being replaced by entitlement, law is being replaced by lawlessness, and Americans are not just being replaced, but forced to foot the bill for it? The victim, a 7-year-old North Carolina girl. The accused, Javier Alfonso Mendoza, 42, an illegal alien. The charges, first-degree statutory sexual offense and taking indecent liberties with a minor. The story. The 7-year-old girl says that Mendoza sexually assaulted her on September 8th and told her mother that he's her babysitter's boyfriend. Mendoza was arrested the next day. The sheriff's office determined that he's in the country illegally. Mendoza is yet another example of the skewing of crime statistics going on across the country. If he were a victim of a crime, he'd surely be counted as Hispanic. But as the alleged perpetrator, you guessed it, he'll go into the statistics as being white, or as we like to call it, Arizona white. Of course, if our feckless government had been doing its job, getting and keeping illegal aliens out of our country, Mendoza wouldn't have been here to be counted at all. And he certainly wouldn't have been here to violently rob a 7-year-old girl of her precious innocence. And that makes this crime what? 100% preventable. The victim, Anuris Caceres, 21, of the Dominican Republic. The criminal, Kelvin Ramirez, 27, an illegal alien from the Dominican Republic. The crimes: second-degree murder and carrying a pistol without a license. The story: on May 14th of last year, Caceres and Ramirez were drinking in a group of 10 people when they got into a heated argument, then a fistfight, over a cell phone. They both left and came back, armed with guns, to continue their dispute behind a South Providence tenement. Ramirez shot Caceres several times, killing him. Ramirez took a plea agreement in exchange for downgraded charges. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and carrying a pistol without a license, but was originally charged with murder and discharging a firearm with death resulting. He had previously been convicted at least twice for dealing heroin. And to highlight just how comfortable illegal aliens feel moving about our country as if they have a right to be here, Ramirez, remember he lived and committed this crime in Rhode Island, was caught during a routine traffic stop in South Carolina. So much for living in the shadows. Of course, if our government had been doing its job, getting and keeping illegal aliens out of our country, Ramirez wouldn't have been here to roam about the country at will. He wouldn't have been here to repeatedly deal heroin. And he wouldn't have been here to kill Caceres, his own friend, over a cell phone. And that makes this crime what? 100% preventable. Several times a week, Tom Wenning stages a one-man protest outside a Portland day laborer hiring facility that's funded by taxpayers. In his words, they are making it easy for them to stay here. They are enabling them to break the law. Last week, he even got arrested for his efforts. Tom is a self-described liberal who says he disagrees with conservatives on just about every issue, except one: illegal immigration. Political parties, of course, are in the business of partisanship. Most citizens, however, are not. Tom's activism is the perfect reminder, one we all need sometimes, that this issue knows no party. The majority of Americans want this problem fixed. Remember the Ohio poll we mentioned earlier, where 85% were against taxpayer-funded benefits for illegal aliens? Think about it. That 85%, by definition, has to be made up of people of all political stripes. A recent Rasmussen poll reported that 69% of Americans now say that securing the border is more important than legalizing aliens. Instapundit had the response that wasn't too hard and wasn't too soft. It was just right. And isn't it funny that 69% of Americans don't have a presidential candidate who agrees with them on this issue? Thanks for clicking in to this week's episode of the Blogs for Borders video blog burst. As always, we need and appreciate all the help we can get to keep serving up the news ignores. We don't know if we're more like a fine wine or a shot of whiskey, but either way you can help us avoid last call by going to freedomfolks.com and clicking the Support Blogs for Borders button. PayPal will take it from there. And until next week, be vigilant, be vocal, and be unrelenting. We've got a country to save.